So does this maybe partially explain why the flip side of that is maybe so satisfying to you? So like, I'm thinking about maybe like, think about the GameStop thing, right? You have a bunch of people who are like really trying to like screw people over, right?
Okay.
And then when it like turns back on their face,
The hedge funds?
yeah,
Okay.
and they get just like shut down from it. Like why that's so, because you love when that kind of thing happens.
So
Is that tied to this at all? Where it's like, I don't know if that makes sense. What I'm asking.
sure. So I think what you're saying is, in one case, party A is not receiving the negatives of their poor actions, and instead party B is. And in case two, party A is trying to put down party B, but suffers the consequences. I don't know. I mean, they could very well be related. I most definitely, as I think many can relate, find a sense of joy in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this thing that annoys you the most can be boiled down or simplified to when people don't have to face the natural consequences for their poor decisions. I mean, the thing that annoys you is like on top of that, people don't have to face that, and then specifically you have to instead.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But could it also be, I mean, could we simplify it to when people don't have to face the negative consequences of their actions?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe you just boil that down to like justice. Where in case one, like it's unjust that someone is suffering the negative consequences of somebody else's choice when they had no control.
Mm-hmm.
And in case two, people who are attempting to do harm or evil of some kind are receiving exactly what they deserve.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, there's a sense of justice that it really comes down to, for sure.
Or like, you also have a thing where certain things in society where we don't let people face the natural consequences for their decisions, or when people get bailed out of the natural consequences for the decisions, you get really annoyed by that. That really takes you off, I think. Maybe it does go back to the justice thing.
Yeah,
But
I think in some of those cases where people don't suffer the negative consequences of their actions, like obviously there's a component of mercy that I think is required.
Yeah, there's a line. Yeah.
But I think a component of mercy is at least recognition of the mercy that one is receiving, first. And second, I think oftentimes what you're referring to, where somebody doesn't suffer the negative consequences of a given action that they've taken, in many of those instances, though admittedly not all, we're playing with a zero-sum game. So it's not just that this one individual is not suffering the negative consequences of his or her actions. It's also that while there may not be one person who's bearing the burden of that negative choice, the negative choice and the burden of that is dispersed amongst a large group of people.
Like society as a whole?
Sure. That may be the case. Now, there are certain things where, well, I'll say, you said something earlier, which is we don't allow somebody to suffer the natural consequences.
Is that different than what you're talking about?
If it's a natural consequence, the price must be paid. The question is who's going to pay it, and I think in a lot of those instances, the answer is, oh, well, now it's a massive or a particularly large group of people, in many cases just society at large, that suffers the consequences for the negative choices of one individual.
So think about when all the rioting was going on around the country a couple years ago, right? And you had people looting stores all over the place, and there weren't necessarily consequences. Like, not all of these people faced consequences for that, right?
Yeah,
so
a large disproportionate amount of people.
The people who paid those prices were the business owners or say it was a Target corporation. But there were smaller businesses who were also facing damage and facing issues like that.
Well, okay, so in that case, right, this is not necessarily something that affects just society as a whole, but yeah, it does affect a okay, sure. Let's track with that example. So then there are natural consequences to burning down a building. There's no longer a building. Right? It's not like we're putting a kid in timeout and we don't need to put a kid in timeout necessarily, right? We could have a sense of mercy and like nothing needs to happen here. In many cases you should, but it's not natural in that there once was something and now there isn't in the physical world. So, in that case, someone needs to pay the price to essentially, and maybe this is not the case, but somebody needs to pay for the lost value. Okay? And to your point, okay, a Target is burned down. Target's not actually paying for the lost value. Some insurance company is. Okay? That insurance company is not just going to lose money. Okay? They're going to make money back. Insurance companies are in the business of making money. So, what happens is, either A, the insurance company needs to raise rates, or B, they're going to suffer some loss. If they suffer some loss, that's going to negatively affect the shareholders. If they don't suffer some loss, then every other paying customer or whatever group that specific Target was lumped in with, so maybe they do it on a regional basis. So now that area of the city, all of the businesses there, even if they weren't burned down, need to pay higher insurance rates because now they're trying to make up for the burned down Target, right? And you can apply this to 50 things, and maybe it's not just Target, maybe it's some small business, or maybe it's somebody's home. Ultimately, some price needs to be paid. It's not being paid by whomever burned this Target or this person's home or whatever down. Period.
Right. Or people are, if there's violence or crime in an area, maybe home values are going down because people are moving out of that area. So that community as a whole pays the price for that in lost home value.
Yeah, and I think this was one of the things that was so sad to me with those riots, which is regardless of what you think happened with the events surrounding the riots or with the riots themselves, regardless of what you think, we should be able to agree on one thing, which is that the people who are getting hurt here are the people in these communities.
Right.
Okay? And I don't think that that's a good thing. It's not like, we are attacking an individual who did something wrong. It's not like we're even attacking some group or some company that did something wrong, right? It's not like, oh, well, BP spilled all this oil in the Gulf and now they need to pay some fine because they spilled the oil in the Gulf and they need to pay for whatever it's going to take to clean it up. Like, that's not what's happening. The people who are paying for this are
the people who are suffering
homeowners.
The consequences most directly are those individuals in the communities.
Yeah. So it's like shooting yourself in the foot. Whether you agree with or you disagree with it. I don't think that that it was good for the people in that community. The people that lived in that community, that lived in that area, the people that were affected by that. I think that this is very sad for them. I think that this is not good for them, and I feel bad that, I feel bad in the sense not that I participated. I feel bad in the sense of sadness for them.
Right.
Empathetically. I feel bad that they're experiencing this, but did nothing wrong. Like, this is the type of injustice in my mind. And we can talk about injustice on a bunch of different levels, okay? But
yeah, I think what you're saying, a lot of this does come down to a level of injustice that happens that causes that annoyance. Basically, someone needing to face a consequence for something they maybe don't deserve.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's an interesting tie to, maybe there's a component of justice in there that plays a role in this.
And forget about the people who did it. It's just that this negative thing was perpetrated by people.
Mm-hmm.
And other people are suffering in home values, in lost homes in some cases, in increased insurance,
Mm-hmm.
in not feeling safe, in not being able to go down to the Target that they went to before, or the Walgreens, or the insert thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Small businesses in the area. I heard that a number of businesses in that area had to close, even though they were not directly affected, because
Well, this was happening all over the country, not
Yeah.
just in Minneapolis where it started.
yeah. But
Yeah.
like a number of businesses I heard in the area had to close, even though they weren't directly affected, because now people don't feel comfortable going in that area. And to me, that's sad when you have people suffering the negative effects of something where, on any level, the reason for the riots themselves, they weren't involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're suffering because of that. And I think that that's really sad. And like, from something as trivial as headphones to something as large as losing your home or having your community and having your community and neighborhood destroyed, like, regardless, I think that it's a miscarriage of justice, and it's sad, and it is frustrating to see people suffer the negative consequences of somebody else's decisions, especially when they had no control, and especially when that other person's decisions were bad.
Yeah. That's what annoys you most, huh?
Yes. That's what annoys me most.